Okay, we're going to make a start. Thank you for waiting patiently. Welcome to Ask Wessex, hashtag. That's what we like to see, so you can get involved on Twitter and Facebook as well. Let the panel introduce themselves, and we'll start down this end.
Okay, my name's Steve Watkins. I'm the General Manager for Wessex at Avonmouth and Kingsham. I'm in charge of the operational and engineering issues at the depot, making sure your buses actually run.
I'm Stephen Hazelden. I'm the Strategic Development Manager at Wessex, so I'm responsible for timetabling, networking and the commercial aspect of the network.
Hi, my name's Chris Blythe. I'm the Operations Director for Rotala PLC with specific responsibility for bus operations in the Midlands and the South West, including Wessex.
Hi, I'm Chris Donnelly. I'm the Travel and Access Manager at the university. I'm the guy that's basically here to try and get you into and home from university every day.
Okay, and I'm Charlie, the President of the Students' Union, for those who don't know who I am. So we've got a few questions that were submitted before, and there's some questions and reactions we'll get from the floor. So we'll start with the first one, which is from Nicole. If you could stand up when your question's called and read it out, we'll get a mic to you so you can read that out. This is also being live streamed as well on the Student Union website, so smile, perhaps.
In my experience, the times displayed on the electronic boards at the bus stops do not match when the buses arrive. Why are they not correct?
Okay, that's one for me to take. When we create timetables, we have a piece of software that does that called Omni. We then export that into a range of different formats. When we export it, for most places in the United Kingdom, we then send that to the local authority. So here we send that to Bristol City Council in various formats. It's then up to them how they format that and how they display that at the bus stop. We also then provide that to another couple of people that gives you the live tracking information, or it's meant to be live tracking information. But we're aware that some of the ways that they've been receiving files or the way that they've manipulated them have been slightly different, and it's thrown some of the times out. I understood that was a problem, so actually we've approached the council to put up our own timetable cases on the bus stops, which we're hoping to paint red, and they will have our printed timetables printed by us directly from our software, and we'd also have fare table information on those, so you'd be able to see your fare before you get on the bus. The problem we've had with doing that is that the council haven't wanted us to do that to this point. We've now got the Deputy Mayor for Transport involved, and he's championing our case with the council. So the reason it's not always correct is because it's not under our control, but we are making steps to try and make sure that those are correct by printing them in-house ourselves. I expect that's probably going to take another 4 to 8 weeks.
Has anyone else had experiences of that tool? Some of you maybe. Pete at the back, thank you. There's another question on timetable. I'm not sure if Jack Roberts is here. He said he might not be able to attend. But he said, are the paper copies of the bus times on the bus stops correct? And why don't the bus times appear on electronic boards like first buses always do? What can we use as a reliable timetable? So at the moment, what can students use?
Okay, so the answer to that is in my last point. It's at the moment, what goes on the electronic display boards isn't in our control. We've submitted another couple of files today to Bristol City Council to try and get those to be correct. What we actually run to are the timetables that we print. They're the Wessex Star. They're in a sort of DL, 1/3 of an A4. The lady there has one, thank you. And you can pick those up from the UE kiosk. You can download them from our website, which is wessexstar.com or wessexbus.com. And that's what we run off. So they're 100% correct, and they will be right. And that's what we'll be using to print the timetable information at stop from.
Thank you. Any reactions to timetabling or any questions? Pete?
I'm very pleased to learn that you're sending the timetable to Bristol City Council. However, given that this campus is in South Gloucestershire, perhaps you could be more accurate with which local authority you send the timetable to. Because if you want the timetable on the bus stop in South Gloucestershire, how about you send it to the right goddamn local authority?
Okay. The VIX is actually funded for by Bristol City Council. So South Gloucestershire actually do it through Bristol City Council. So we send all of the information to the one point of contact we have that then sorts out travel information for the region. So they just happen to work for Bristol City Council, so we do send it to the right place. We've been doing this for many years and we've never sent it to the wrong place.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a question from Sam. So when you extended the service time on the 14 bus, which a lot of students wanted a later running bus service, why do I frequently turn up later for that bus and find out it doesn't actually arrive whatsoever? Stephen down the end.
Okay. We started operating the 14s beginning of the term, and we've experienced high passenger levels on the first 3 buses, where at the first stop they've been constantly full. Drivers were then turning round to come up the M32 rather than continuing the full service because they couldn't fit any other people on the vehicles. This was highlighted to us with complaints that the buses would turn on. We investigated, that's what we found. So we then instructed the drivers to follow the full route, and then complaints started coming in that the buses were always full and they still couldn't get on the vehicles. Due to this now, we've relooked and we're in the middle of rewriting timetables to increase the frequency of the buses to combat this. Unfortunately, this is going to take some time. This isn't going to happen next week. So we're aware that the first 3 buses are always full at the first stop. This has a knock-on effect where people can't get on. The next services in the line are then getting delayed because of passenger levels, and this has a knock-on effect. So by the time you come to 9 o'clock, your buses are automatically delayed. It's purely down to passenger volumes. But we are going to combat this by increasing the frequency.
I'll just pick up a point there so you can all understand a bit more about transport. When we put together a timetable, we can't just go and run it. We have to then register that with the traffic commissioner for the area. So that means that we have to fill in a lot of forms, attaching a timetable, a route map, and a couple of other descriptions, and then we have to send that to the traffic commissioner. Once that's got to the traffic commissioner, we have to give that 56 days before that can come into effect. So even if we wanted to make a change today, and I believe Chris has been working on the timetabling at head office today, even if we had a timetable finalised today that we wanted to run, we'd still have to send it to the traffic commissioner and wait 56 days. Attached to that is also that a lot of the local authorities have what they call change dates, which are dates at which we can change timetables, and there are a couple throughout the year. I think there's probably 6 or so throughout the year, and we have to try and meet those deadlines. So much as I'd love to be able to change the timetable for tomorrow to make it right, I'm bound by what we have to do with the authority that regulates us, which is our legal framework. So that just gives you a bit of information about why we can't just change things immediately.
Yeah, Stephen's absolutely correct. And today we've looked extensively at the 14 and 19 service because we've identified that both these services are giving us a bit of a problem in terms of reliability, as everybody has highlighted. And I think whilst in normal circumstances, the 56-day window with the traffic commissioner is absolutely correct, there is scope for me to write to the traffic commissioner and ask for a dispensation as a result of timeliness and overcapacity, and if the Students' Union were prepared to give us a letter of support to support that, we can reduce the time required to do that, but that's at the sole discretion of the traffic commissioner. So I think that we are keen to write to the traffic commissioner as soon as we've identified from the VIC system that you've heard about and the analysis that we've done since we met Charlie last week to get these timetables positioned to a point where we have more confidence that they're going to cope with the demand and all the other things that we've identified as particularly delaying services. And it'll be for us to write to the traffic commissioner and explain that you guys are experiencing problems getting to university. It's a result of capacity, it's a result of traffic delays, and we would request the permission of the traffic commissioner to reduce the time that they'll allow us to do it, and hopefully that will allow us to do it quicker than we would normally have to do it.
Thank you very much. Any comments on punctuality at all?
Actually, I do. I'm one of the first stops on the 12, so I'm on North Street. And I keep experiencing loads of late buses today. I had 2 buses that are late, because I purposely get that early in order to make sure that if you are late, at least I can still get to uni on time. I've had that happen to me twice. Also, I've sent complaints every time this has happened. So I've sent 3 emails, and I've actually tried to call you 5 times, and I haven't received any response to this whatsoever.
Didn't want to pick that up.
Okay, I'm sorry that you haven't had a response. We aim to send an automatic response to everybody just to say that we've had your email. And then we try to respond to every complaint within 28 days where possible. So I apologise that you haven't had a reply to that. We have experienced high volumes of calls. We have recently changed the way that we handle complaints. Previously they used to go to our head office in Birmingham, but we've employed somebody locally at the Avonmouth depot to try and handle complaints. I know she's had a difficult time in trying to catch up she's had a big job on. So I can only think there's a backlog, and I will go away and have a look at that and work with her to try and make sure that we get a response to you and everybody else if we are being that tardy. So I do apologise.
What are you going to do about the fact that you have so many late buses?
Okay, as I said about the 14, we experienced passenger levels, which was causing the issues.
Yeah,
On the
but
12,
passenger.
no, on the 12 and 19, we've experienced that we've got tracking data this year that we never had in previous years, showing that the 12 and 19 are getting delayed significantly. Anything up to 50 minutes we've experienced this morning, buses caught in traffic. This thing, if you're waiting on a particular stop, can look like there's 3 buses not turned up. Unfortunately, they're all tailed behind each other. Whilst we've been looking at the 14 timetables, we've also been looking at the 19s and the 12s, and these will be adjusted accordingly once we've got all the data in, so that we can make the amendments to make the service run a lot smoother into time. Okay.
Is Hannah here at all with a question?
Right, microphone. My question is about 11A, which is the bus I have to endure every morning. To get a bus to get a 10 a.m. lecture, I have a choice of an 8:26, 8:59, 9:07. I've continuously been wanting to get the 8:59, and it is continuously late. I have even had 9:30 a.m. lectures, which I have planned to be at the bus stop for 8:20 to get the 8:26 bus, to which it does not turn up, and then the 8:59 bus does not turn up. It is not until 9:10 that I can get on a bus, by which point there are too many people trying to get on a bus that is not able to take it. Everyone crams on. It is a health and safety issue. What are you going to do about it? Marketgate are given free bus passes. You've had plenty of warning that there are students getting on that bus every day, and there's no buses or the capacity for the amount of people. What are you going to do about that?
Okay, we started off the first week, it was very quiet, so we concentrated. This is fact, this is the stats that we have for passenger levels show that it was quiet in the first week. We concentrated on the issues with the 14s, 19s and 12s and looking at the data we were receiving. It wasn't then until the second week information started coming through about the 11A. These were capacity issues. We put double-decker vehicles on. We had windows put through in the trees at the entrance to Bower Ashton. So we took them back off. We went down, visited the site, we looked at it and said, it's still doable. So again today we put a double decker on from demand from students, and again the branch has gone through and taken the top deck out of the double decker. So we can no longer put double deckers on 11A. So the capacity issues we're going to have to revisit and look at. We haven't looked at to this date because we've tried with the double deckers, but they cannot go on there for safety reasons.
But you wouldn't have had the capacity issues had the buses turned up when they should have done. So surely you should be looking into getting the buses turning up at the time that they are supposed to be, so that there are not too many people getting on the one that does turn up.
Right, I'm not aware that buses haven't turned up. I'm aware they run late, but not that they don't turn up at all. But this is something that we need to look into and resolve this issue the same as the services.
Can we get a comment at the back?
I have experienced the very same problem of 3 buses not showing up, even though they are the first 3 of the morning. And that's very difficult for me, a severely disabled postgrad student who now has to walk a 3-mile round trip, courtesy of your cancellation of the Service 15. I know this is a very difficult concept to grasp, but there are other roads than the Gloucester Road, and you can buses on other roads in the city than the Gloucester Road. When you cancelled the 15, yes, you met the requirement set out by the Traffic Commissioner to tell him in Birmingham 56 days in advance, but you only gave 6 days notice on the bus stops of a change in service that meant nobody in northwest Bristol is any longer served by the Wessex network. So if you live in Henleys, in Westbury, in Redland, you struggle to actually find a bus because the 15 service has been removed. And those 56 days of consultation you put out over the summer holiday when we weren't here. So yes, it's really frustrating to walk 1.5 miles when you're severely disabled in treatment for cardiac problems, and then to stand for over an hour because the first 3 drivers didn't show up to work and drive their big red bus. Now, in terms of capacity, you have known for half a decade the size of Market Gate, the number of students, and the timetable. It's not rocket science to work out how big a transport network you need to run. If you can't do it, take the letters CIC, Community Interest Company, off the buses you didn't bother to rebrand when you put them on the 501 and 502 service with the 15 logo still on them. Turn off the LCD screens with the images of the map as if they're going through Clifton when they're going through Avonmouth, and actually learn how to run a decent service, because every person in this room deserves a better service than the one you're currently providing. And the £70,000 you were fined over the summer was a drop in the ocean compared to the frustration you've caused these people. Apologise now.
Does anyone want to pick up on that at all, or make any comments before I move on to a tweet about the 15?
I missed the last part of that. Could you just repeat that last part when you talked about a drop in the ocean, please?
The last thing I said was you all should be apologising to the people in this room for your failure to run an adequate service.
Yeah, you made a mention just prior to you making that comment about something being a drop in the ocean. I didn't quite catch what you said. Could you repeat that part of your statement, please?
About fines.
The £70,000 fine, which Rotala was fined for its failure to adhere to punctuality targets on the Wessex Star network, is a drop in the ocean of the frustration and anxiety that your service failures have caused the 30,000 users of your network who are students at this university. And you have a stark choice. You either need to apologise, give a mea culpa, and learn as a learning organisation, or you need to back out of being the provider and let an actual company that can deliver the needs and interests of these people deliver the service. CIC, you're not a community interest company, you're a for-profit commercial operator. How dare you have the letters CIC trading as Flights Hallmark on the buses that you haven't even bothered to rebrand when you've taken them off the 15 and put them on the 50102. We deserve better.
Okay, there's a couple of points that I would like to pick up on that you've mentioned, and I will extend an apology to everyone in the room and those people that have experienced difficulties in terms of the bus service since the start of semester 1. I think that there was a change from a contracted service with the university to us having to make a commercial decision as to what level of service could we provide. That obviously meant that we could fund the bus service from the money that we made from operating it. And that was a very, very difficult decision that we had to make. And what I would say in that is that the university were engaged at every step throughout the process in trying to develop a network that was a commercial network as opposed to the previous contractual network that met the needs of the students. It's perfectly clear, and it is every semester 1, that when you have not got all the information in relation to people's travel patterns and where certain people are staying, and to develop a network on that basis is very, very difficult. So what we've relied upon this year is the significant investment that we have made in real-time information and the investment we've made in the Wessex business to come up with a more scientific way of developing timetables. Now, quite clearly, in the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the semester 1, we've identified by the things that we've done and the investment that we've made that there is a problem with certain services. We've talked about them. We've talked about the 12, the 19, the 14, and we've now heard about the service 11. And you can be rest assured that as the operations director for this business, I take that very seriously, and I know that my colleagues who work locally within the depot, and Stephen Hazelden spends time in head office, we are unhappy with what we see, the reliability statistics that we see in the first 3 weeks of the semester. Now, what we can do is we can allow things to continue till the timetables at university flatten off and we get some stability within the university semester, or we can take immediate steps to try and find a solution to some of the problems. And Charlie knows full well that on the weekend, immediately after the meeting that I had with him, I spent the weekend reviewing the timetables that had been communicated to us that were the worst performing, and I spent 3 hours today with the Strategic Development Director re-looking at these timetables to come up with a better solution to what we currently have. So our commitment to you is resolute. We want to run a reliable service, but semester 1 will always create us a difficulty until the timetable flattens out for all university students and we can get a better idea of travel patterns, and the real-time information that we're receiving in the first 3 weeks gives us some tangible data to come up with a better solution for everybody. So we're working hard on that, to do that, and as I've said, I'm quite prepared to write to the Traffic Commissioner and try and get a reduction on the 56 days that Stephen's outlined, so we can resolve it quickly rather than stick to the legislative framework. Moving on to the £70,000 fine that Flights Hallmark got. We never got fined £70,000. The fine levelled by the Traffic Commissioner was in fact £19,200. And what I will say to you is that we provided significant evidence to the Traffic Commissioner of the hard work that had been put in by everybody in the business to take steps to try and help the reliability service, and that was recognised by the Traffic Commissioner in her written judgment. We've got more work we need to do. We need to talk more with Charlie, because Charlie and the team are working well together and feeding back information that allows us to position things to make service better. And so I think that's the facts of the matter. The significant investment that Flights Hallmark have made in the Wessex business were recognised by the Traffic Commissioner, and the steps that we are taking to resolve some of the issues were recognised as well. And there's a lot of things that happen in the Bristol roads, and I'm sure each and every one of you appreciate it, that it's very difficult sometimes when you have a major road closure, you have roadworks spring up at the last minute. There's very many factors that affect reliability of bus services. Do we need to be more on the ball with that? Of course we do. Do we need to respond quicker to that? Of course we do. For us, it's a learning process, and we need to respond probably more quickly to things that happen. But there is no lack of commitment by anybody that's involved in the Wessex or Flights Hallmark or Ritala business to achieve the best level of service that we possibly can. That's the comments I would make to you. You know, I'm working hard to review what we're currently doing to try and find a solution very quickly, and I'm devoting a lot of time to try and do that, because I realise how important it is to each and every one of you.
Can you just wait till we mic you up just for the live stream?
I can shout loud.
It's just for the live stream, and then we'll go for a comment over here, and then Chris at the end, perhaps you want to pick up something from you.
Thank you, darling. I was wondering, because you've made some points about the 56 days, and obviously you're learning, you need to make improvements, that takes time. So what advice would you give to students for us to do in the meantime? Because obviously we can't continue being late for our lessons. That's going to affect our performance. We're here to learn and study. We're paying a lot of money to do so. What would you suggest? Shall we, in the meantime, use an alternative mode of transport?
No, that's not what I'm saying, of course. I mean, I think that when we talk about learning, what we're talking about is from the depot level to identify where there's particular problems, and if there's a need to put an additional vehicle in to cope with reliability or to cope with demand, then we should be doing that. That's exactly what we should be doing.
If you keep being late, then I'm going to keep being late to my lessons. I can't continue like that.
Yes, I understand that.
Me. So I'm either going to have to use the other bus service, which is first. While I was waiting for your bus, there was actually 2 of those turned up and could have taken them, but I thought, no, I'll wait. Or I'll have to like walk or cycle, find some other means. I won't carry on using your service because I won't be able to rely on you to do so.
I think I go back to the response I gave you a moment ago, was that at depot level, where there is perceived to be a problem, or we're getting feedback that there is a problem, it's for Stephen and his team locally to allocate some additional resource until such times as we can find a longer term solution to a problem. So what that would mean is, for example, is if there's evidence that the buses are being delayed, that Stephen provides a bus and a driver to go and sit in the middle of the ones that are getting delayed, or go in front of that, go off service to the end terminal point and provide a level of service. Now that's perfectly within Stephen's gift to do that, and there would be an expectation that that's what would happen.
Cool. When's that going to come?
Well, Stephen's here today, and I'm sure we'll have a conversation with Stephen after the event and give him some specific details. I'm sure Stephen can have a look at that for tomorrow morning.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
And can I just pick up that very, very quick comment? Do you still have a comment to make? And then I want to ask Chris at the end a question.
Okay, basically, Guy second in from that side. You mentioned about the fact that you're getting feedback from how many students are turning up to their lectures, and you're waiting for lectures to even out. But if you are writing on this saying that a bus should be there in the morning, then it should be there regardless of how many people have a lecture at 10, how many people have a lecture at 12, whatever, it should be there. It can't just pick and choose to economise when the most people need to get on the bus. It needs to be there regardless if someone turns up or not to get that bus. There needs to be better communication from what I gather between your buses, because several times I've asked the bus drivers which bus they're supposed to be, where are the other buses, why haven't they turned up, to which they just look at me blankly. I also got speaking to a lovely bus driver who was waiting 30 minutes at the Frenchay Campus to get on a bus that he was supposed to be driving elsewhere. If their own staff can't get on a bus, how can the customers get on the bus? There's clearly a communication issue going on, and the fact that you can't stick to the timetable you printed shows there's big issues.
Just to put some context on this, the last time a bus company frustrated students of this university so much, we had the Member of Parliament hold a public inquiry into the service, and they lost the contract. That's what you're facing.
Just let me reiterate the point I made earlier in response to your last comment. There is no contract in place. I think this is a solely commercial service. Wessex Star is a commercial operation. So in terms of contractual relationships, that does not exist. That's how it used to exist. But this year, this semester, is the first time that we've developed a commercial network in conjunction with the university, based on our ability to meet the cost of running that service. Look, whether it's a contractual relationship or otherwise, our contractual relationship sits with you guys, and we need to try and fulfil the terms of the contract that we make with you as our valued customers. Now, the 11A, you've raised that today, and I've listened to everything that you've said, and I will go back to Birmingham tonight, and I will have a look at the 11A, and I'll have a look at the 11A tracking data, and I'll see which services have not operated, which have run late and everything else, and I'm quite happy to come back to you. If you leave me your details, I'll investigate specifically the 11A, like I did the 19 and the 40, and I'll give you a personal response to the points that you've made. I'm quite happy to do that. And if there's anybody else who wants me to look at specifics, I'm quite happy to look at that, and I'm quite happy on a one-to-one basis to come back to you and give you an outline of what my investigations uncovered. I'm quite happy to do that, because that's how important we believe the relationship with everybody in this room is, and everybody that uses the Wessex Star services.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'm conscious of time, so we get more people voices heard. Yulia, do you have a question you want to raise?
Hello. So my question is, what actually encouraged your decision to cancel the bus route 11 that went to Borough?
Well, I'll actually answer this one on behalf of Wessex, because it was through a negotiation with us. What's unclear is we haven't actually really cancelled the 11. What we've done is changed it slightly. The 12 service now goes right the way through to Barrow Ashton, but it runs along Anchor Road. The decision to run it along Anchor Road was taken because we've got a lot more students living on that side of the river now, particularly because there's a large block of accommodation down there now with another couple of hundred students in called Anchor Court. It was to make sure that they were served, and then the 11A was brought in. Again, it was a difficult decision which side of the next river, as it were, because it runs around Spike Island side, which side of the river there to run down. Talking with the faculty down in Barrow Ashton, that we've got a lot of students that study at Spike Island, so we were running down the Spike Island side of the river rather than on Coronation Road, which I know we've had a lot of feedback saying people can't get to the tobacco factory, but it's kind of a choice, which side of the river do we go down? There is a bridge across, but what if you go one side, you've got to walk down to Spike Island, you go the other side, you've got to walk up to the tobacco factory. So it's picking those routes, and what we do is every year we look at where basically the students were living the year before, and we try and best endeavours try to work out the following year where the students are going to be living. And students do, until first years we kind of know, second years, third years, it's down to you guys to where you live and then tell us where you're living a bit later on. And all we can do is base our information and our discussions on where you're living the year before, really, to base on the following year. We've seen some big shifts this year. We've got a lot more students living over in Southfield this year, which we weren't expecting, and a lot more students moving up to the Fish Ponds area. Again, probably weren't expecting that because it's changed slightly from previous years. So until, that Chris was saying, we start getting that data in of where passengers are boarding and getting off the bus again, it's very, very difficult to understand where you're going to be. What we do is we basically, from all the timetable information, we know roughly how many students should be on university, and we work with that information. But start of the year, everybody wants to be here all of the time, and then we get this big lump of people turning up at this time of the year. A bit later on, that tails off a little bit when people start just coming in for the time they need to be here. So things do settle out, but yes, it's a really difficult time of the year to get it absolutely right, particularly on the routes and timetabling, and it takes us a while to get that adjusted correctly for you.
Any comments?
Sorry, I'm just a bit worried because the number 13 bus hasn't been mentioned yet, and that's kind of like the route that I use most. I've complained about it before in the past, but like on a Monday morning when you know that regardless it's really busy, everyone knows Monday morning, every day of the week is going to be busy. There's no double-decker buses that are running on number 13. It goes all the way from city centre past Glenside to Frenchay, and it is one of the, I know there's other busy bus routes and so on, but it is one of the top ones up there. And it sounds wonderful on paper, like it's meant to come every 10 to 15 minutes and so on, but actually the bus is crap. Like, it runs past me, like sometimes in the morning. I see poor students, if I can get on the bus, it's half full. The bus drivers are rude, they'll go straight past students, and they'll just be standing there like, right, what do I do now? I live quite close to campus, but to walk it would take about half an hour, so I know that once they're passing them, that they're not going to be able to get to uni on time. And I just don't think that's very fair when the route says they'll come every 10 to 15 minutes, and it's meant to be really reliable. We were standing at the bus stop the other day, it was about 7 o'clock in the evening, trying to get into city centre to eat some food. 5 buses didn't turn up, 5 buses, waited an hour and a half, and that has never been that bad before, but 5 buses didn't turn up. We ended up having to get a lift into city centre, and on our way back we saw 1 bus coming through, but there were 5 buses that did not turn up on that day, and I don't understand how that's acceptable.
There's a lot of Twitter activity on the 13 actually, and Rosie's question, if you want to say yours, fits in with this as well.
Why are only single-decker buses used at peak uni travel times, for example 8 to 9 a.m. or 4 till 6 p.m?
So perhaps we could pick up the 13 stuff around double-deckers and also just 13 in general.
Okay, we haven't got a fleet of double-deckers. We've got the right amount of vehicles to operate the services. Our double-deckers are used on the 14s for UE because that's the biggest passenger loadings. The 13s have never had the passenger volume that they're experiencing over the last couple of weeks. These are up by about 60%. So that wasn't expected. This is data that we're having through from last week. In the evenings, to answer your question, are you aware there's diversion route on the 13 over the last week? We wasn't aware either. I've only had this feedback from drivers saying they have to miss half the route out and get delayed up to half an hour from the diversion. This was roadworks put in place after 7 o'clock every evening, right through the night. Yeah.
But I've not heard of that because when we drove and I didn't see any kind of diversion signs or anything.
They are in place. which I'm told will end this week. So the evening service should be back running okay. But the delays on the 13s are purely down to the passenger levels throughout the peak periods. And again, we didn't expect those amount of passengers, but we've found that through meetings with the university that the students have moved into the fish ponds area that in previous years wasn't living in that area.
So maybe that you can bring in double-decker buses on like a Monday morning, or like what's going to change?
I wouldn't say there's a plan to bring double-decker buses, but there's a certain focus that we'll look at the timetable and to put frequency vehicles on.
I think just to supplement that, Charlie, if you don't mind, I think the 13 service, if we remember, used to be a through service, and one leg of that was taken off as a result of funding withdrawal from the LTSF. And therefore we registered the 13 as a frequent service between the campus and the centre. And a frequent service means that the service should operate every 10 minutes or less. When you have a service operating that frequently, the requirement for double-deckers should be significantly less. And I'm surprised that what I'm hearing on the 13 service, because certainly from this afternoon's evaluation of the tracking data, the 13 service in the main was reliable in terms of the tracking data from what we saw. You've made the point about buses being missing, and what I need to do is again have a look at what you're telling me from the real-time information, and I'll do that. On a more light-hearted note, yes, triple-deck vehicles are resigned to Harry Potter, I think. I mean, we can't have triple-deck vehicles. We are governed in what types of vehicles that can operate, and double decks in the main do not carry as much as some of the single decks that we operate, because as you're aware, there's no standing passengers on the upper saloon, and there's a restriction in the numbers because of the shortness of the vehicle on the lower saloon. So some of the vehicles that we're doing on a frequent service and higher capacity single decks, as on the 13, should carry adequately the passengers. Stephen's saying that there's been a 60% increase in passenger numbers. We could only ever add more vehicles into the cycle and make it a 5-minute frequency, and then you would have buses travelling together and all getting stuck in the traffic, and you know, it would create all sorts of potential other issues for us. But that was the rationale behind the 13 service, was to make it a frequent service, maximise the number of people it could take into the city centre from the campus.
There was a hand at the back. I don't know if you still have a comment to make. You can wait.
Hi, yeah. I just want to talk about something that happened on Tuesday, basically. I think it's regarding due to road closure on Eastern Road or something. The 13s that were coming from town were cancelled, and they didn't turn up at Frenchay around evening time, like 6, 7. And there were a lot of us who were waiting at the Frenchay bus stop for literally, I waited for 45 minutes, but there was another girl who was literally waiting for 2 hours straight. And no 13s turned up, even though the timetable was saying that they were due. Literally just show 2 minutes, 1 minute due, and then it goes on to the next timetable. Nobody said anything until this girl finally gave up and asked the driver who's driving the 14 and asked where's all the 13s, and he was like, oh yeah, well the Eastern Road's closed, so none of the 13s can come up to Frenchay. And yeah, and literally everyone was just like, what? Are you kidding me? We've been waiting forever here. Nobody comes and tells us that the 13s are cancelled. I don't know if you guys like mentioned it on Twitter or Facebook, but basically we were all standing in the cold, freezing our hands off and our butts off basically, waiting. And then these girls had no choice but had to discuss and share a cab and go home, and I had a friend who was kind enough to come and get me. But that actually happened Tuesday, and we were all really pissed off, and we've been pissed off because the 13s haven't been turning up on time. I have a class at 9, I go and wait at the bus stop at 7:50, but the bus only turns up at 8:30, and even when it does, it's full and it just drives away. And then the next bus comes at 8:40, and by the time we get stuck in traffic and get to uni, it's 8:50, and I reach class, I'm 10 minutes late. So we've been already pretty disappointed when that Tuesday thing happened. It literally was the limit for me, and that's why I'm here, and I'm letting you know that the 13 needs to get sorted. because we are really, really pissed off on fish ponds.
I know you're angry and everyone's angry, but can we keep language accessible, please, to people watching online?
Sorry, can I just ask you a question? If something like that were to happen, where for whatever reason something got cancelled because of roadwork or it couldn't serve stops, how would you want the information? What's the best way for us as a company to provide you that information?
The thing is, there were so many buses who did come, like, there were so many 19s and 14s coming and picking up students. We would have appreciated if any of those drivers had come to the bus stop B and let us know that the 13s were cancelled, but nobody said anything until one of us literally went and asked them.
Okay, just on that note, while drivers are driving, we don't contact them. As you wouldn't answer a phone when you're driving, we don't expect our drivers to answer a phone while driving. So that's slightly difficult. Obviously, when they stop and they call back to base for whatever reason, we can inform them. But I suppose what I'm trying to gain from you guys here is how can I change how we communicate with you better? It's obviously an issue, I accept that. So I need to understand how you guys want the information. If we do have problems, how should I get that to you? We do use Twitter every now and again, and we're getting better at that.
Yeah.
We're relatively new to it, but what do you as a student body feel is the best?
Text alerts?
Yeah,
we tried using text.
One more thing was that timetable, that electronic board was misleading, because if the 13th were cancelled, they should have taken the 13th off from the board, but they didn't do that.
Unfortunately.
If the 13th weren't showing on the board, we would have interpreted that yes, the 13th weren't turning up. But that board was continuously saying that, oh, the next bus is coming in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
You, not coming. Okay, next one is coming at 10 minutes. So we were just hoping, oh, maybe, it was a breakdown or something, because that happened before. The 13th did break down and it turned up late. So we were probably hoping, like, oh yeah, maybe it's a bit delayed like usual. So we just wait, but it didn't turn up at all.
I'll just answer the quick bit about the electronic board, and then Stephen will take you into the issues. The electronic board, as I said earlier, isn't within our control. I can't delete a line off that. So even if a bus isn't running, what that does is basically that looks at basically like an Excel sheet behind it that's got a timetable on for every service, and it just basically displays around that time, whatever time it is on the board. If a service gets cancelled, I currently at the moment don't have a way of taking that off the board, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry. It'd be fantastic if we had that, and maybe that's something we can take to the council and ask how we do that. So I'm really sorry, but at the moment we can't do that. I'll hand over to Stephen.
Okay, we never cancel a service, okay? I'm looking at the tracking data for that night, and the bus is operating 55 minutes late due to a road traffic accident that was out of our control. We got no control over that. The bus is operating 55 minutes late with one 15 seconds behind it, and the next one 2 minutes 82 behind that. I got no control over that. The only way we can combat that is by communicating to you. But the service wasn't cancelled, and I believe this has happened again mid-morning today, where someone got run over and the 13s couldn't operate the route for up to 2 hours, I'm told. Again, that's out of our control. All we can do is try and communicate this to you, and Stephen's question was, what is the best way to communicate this information to you?
Well, you could try coming out of the hut. You know, you have a member of staff in a hut, 4 foot away from the bus stop. If you can't even be bothered to do that, you don't deserve an operator's license.
Okay, at 7 o'clock in the evening, the kiosk is
55 minutes late is unacceptable.
It is when there's an RTA. Unfortunately, that's out of our control.
Can we show of hands so we get people's views? Can we just do a show of hands though for different ways of communication, because that was the question asked. If you want to be communicated via Twitter and stuff, and that's an effective way, can we just see a show of hands so Wes has got a view of how they can communicate with you? Okay, Facebook, text alerts. So there's a lot of people putting the same up for the same stuff, so it's a variety of different ways of getting that communication. Can I just go to Nicole and then Eula, please? And then Will.
There's this app that I got called Travel West Bus Checker, and it's like the most brilliant app ever. It shows like the first buses are always live, they're always ready, and then the Wessex buses, it shows you like in grey to say that, oh, it's minutes to come, but it probably won't turn up, and then a few of them are live sometimes, and that's great. So why don't Wessex just have one of those which they can kind of alter when they want, so you do it yourself. So it's an app, so it's not necessarily on that big timetable board. You just do it yourself, because I don't understand why first is so able to be on time. Every time a first bus goes past my bus stop, I look at it and I'm just like, oh, I should have got a first bus pass. I should have done it. I think that's what most people do. Like 2 or 3 of them turn up while waiting for like a number 13 or a number 14. And it doesn't make sense why you can't just use an app, a simple system. Everyone's got the technology these days, everyone has a smartphone. It's just the simplest idea, and you've not thought about it, and you've not considered it at all. I don't understand why.
Okay, to say that we haven't considered it isn't accurate. The Travel West app is funded by Travel West, and we pay for that app as well. That's been part of the development that us and First and the other operators put into. So it's not anybody else's specific app. We use that app, we're there in it.
Like I found out through a friend, but Wessex should say, right, this is the way for you.
So the reason we don't promote it at the moment is because currently the information there isn't live. And we're working with the council towards so as you'll see on the first buses, it tracks them live. You can see where the buses are. At the moment, it doesn't track all of our vehicles. We now have got to the point where we've got 100% of vehicles fitted with the right system. We're now working with the council and in-house to make sure that that can then work on that app. It's not an easy process. Apps cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to make. It's not a simple app. It's not a matter of just making it on something online.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I work in lanes, and the amount of people that come in, it's quite sad for Wessex. And they're like, right, I tried Wessex, no, I'm going with First now. And I'm so
we understand that, but we're here that's why we're here.
I feel sorry for you guys, because it's just like, you have everything in place. I mean, you give all the first years like a free bus pass, and it's great when you're first, you don't have to worry about it. Like, it's fantastic, you've got everything in place. It's just like, you do little things, and it's just like, it completely goes out of proportion, and you get this sort of thing. First isn't having to deal with this, they don't have this problem. And it's like the littlest things that you need to think of, you're not doing it. And I don't understand why. Like, just buses being late, and just that whole communication thing has broken me down. I don't get why.
Okay, but that's why we're here today. We're here today because Charlie said that we need to engage more, and we said, yeah, fantastic, let's have an open forum. So we understand that. We're not deaf or blind to the fact that we've got issues. That's why we're here. That's why we're engaging with you. That's why I want to know how best to communicate things. That's why Chris has spent a lot of time over the weekends going through all of the tracking data and trying to find out how we're going to timetable things properly. So I think it's unfair to say that we're not alert to the fact that there are issues. We are. That's why we're here. We want to engage with you, and we want to make things better. We don't wake up every day and think, great, let's annoy as many people as we can. That's not how a business works. So we're here to try and make sure that we can get it right going forward. So I hope this just displays our commitment, that you've got 3 people here, you've got our names, and you know where we are. I'm often at the kiosk, Stephen's often up here, and we are here trying to make things better for you. And we're manning the kiosk, which we don't have to do, but we're doing because we want to make a difference.
Grab your point, please.
Yeah, well, okay, so I'm from Bulgaria, which is the poorest country in the European Union. I come from Sofia, which is the capital, and it has 2 million people. I thought that we have the worst public transport in the world, and then I came to restaurants of this. Not really. And there is something really simple that works there when there is a problem with one people, they repair a road or whatever happens. You just put a note, a simple paper note on the bus stop itself. So people can go and read it, nothing more. It really works, no problems like this, and no need to go to Twitter, of course, put on Twitter, but think of the very simplest things first.
Okay, I agree. At the moment, we aren't allowed to put anything on the timetables. As I said earlier, they're not owned by us, they're owned by the council, but we have asked that we have our own timetable information at stops, and therefore if we get those, we can do that kind of thing.
Can I pick up at the back?
Is it on? Okay. Hello. Yeah. One thing that hasn't really been raised yet is that the impression I get, I don't really use Wessex that often, but when I do, a few times I've had to tell the driver where to go. One time the driver got out for a smoke, like on the bus route, and I think it's due to kind of poor training of your drivers. So I was just wondering, no one's really picked up on that. So I just wanted to ask, what is the training like for your drivers, and sort of how are they trained, and why aren't they told, where to go, basically?
Okay, I'm not sure whether you're aware, but drivers now have to have a qualification called a DCQ card. They go on a course every year to acquire this over a 5-year period, so they have the training. For those that have experienced a driver that doesn't know the route, our drivers get route learned on Pacific routes, so we have a pool of drivers that are specific to UE routes. Now, if I get sickness or people fail to turn in for work, I will pull drivers off to cover the UE route that maybe not be UE trained. But is it better that I put that driver on so at least your bus turns up, or would you rather the bus not show? So that's when you'll experience that, but that is a very rare occasion that should happen.
I think, can I just pick up on that, because we at local level have had a lot of discussions about that, and this year is the first time where we've had drivers' duties that contain university services and services that sit outside the university. So, for example, Bristol City contracts. So the drivers that are specifically on that are mixing university work with Bristol City Council contract work. And we believe, and we've had this discussion, that what we should be embarking upon is ensuring that every driver that works for Wessex knows every single route that is available for them to drive, so that they have maximum flexibility. So in the case where there's a sickness or somebody doesn't turn into work, then they've got maximum flexibility from any driver when the driver's pool. And I think that that's something that at a local level Stephen is keen to progress. On top of the driver DQC card, every driver that's employed by Wessex has to undergo a company induction. So that's the Ritala induction. Generally takes place in Birmingham, where we outline company expectation, company standards, and what we as a company expect and how we expect our drivers to behave and to conduct themselves. So before somebody goes behind the wheel of a Wessex bus, they've done a full day's induction programme in our Birmingham head office. Of course, sometimes people behave outside what the rules and the expectations are, and that's where Stephen needs to deal with any instances that arise where drivers operate outside what the rules and the expectations are. And I can assure you that I'm aware that does happen. For us to be able to take steps to deal with that, we need feedback from you guys to tell us that the guy was stopped the bus and got out and had a cigarette. That's just unacceptable. We would never expect that, and that's certainly not something that we condone either. But if we know about these individual instances of negative driver behaviours, then we will deal with them. And Stephen's got a team in Avonmouth that would deal with that, and I'm sure they'll deal with it appropriately. How do you want that information? Is that the email address?
Yeah, on the email address. What I will say, if you do and when you do email in, I need details. It's no good saying to me on the 13 route today, the driver was rude. I've got several drivers on the 13 route. I need to know time, location, what the driver did, and then I investigate all of them, and I speak with every driver that I have the information for, and I can deal with that appropriately. But you must give me all the information to allow me to be able to do that.
We do have a question from Steph, who does say that she feels that bus drivers are sometimes rude specifically to students. I don't know if anyone's got experiences of that at all. But is that just, again, to contact the comments email?
Yeah, if you contact me and give me details, then I will deal with them.
Okay. Some tweets that have come in. Why don't you stop referring to tracking data and actually go and see firsthand what students experience? And a PCQ card, of course. Why wouldn't we know what that is? So perhaps that's about communication and how we communicate to everybody so they know exactly what that is.
Sorry, just to pick up on whether we don't go out there. Stephen actually goes out and drives a couple of services, not necessarily every day, but more than a couple of times a week, just to see how things are going, and then we sit down and have a conversation nearly every day over the phone or at work. And I know that Stephen and Chris have weekly meetings where they go through KPIs. I was out yesterday on the route looking at things, and I was down at Bower Ashton again this afternoon. So it's not that we don't go out and we don't know what's happening. We're out there regularly. We use tracking data because it proves what we see, and it also means that I can have a snapshot of exactly what's happened for an entire day as opposed to the one route that I've travelled on. So we do go out there.
Yeah, I think it's really important what Stephen said, is that every week I attend our Avonmouth regional head office, and the depot required to produce a set of key performance indicators that cover things like service reliability, lost mileage, driver numbers, complaints, the number of complaints received in a week, how many have been dealt with, how many remain outstanding. And the depot required to produce these, and we meet every Thursday to go through the key performance indicators for the previous week. I think we don't audit ourselves. We do audit ourselves, and we audit ourselves weekly. And where we have trends where we are concerned, we ask the depot and the team to focus on those concerns. But we're alive to things that happen, and our own systems that we have internally alert us to a lot of some of the stuff that we're tackling at the moment as well.
Can I get that comment? Just wait for a microphone to come to you.
It's all right, it's just a quick one. Done with the label point of what what's lost mileage? What does that mean?
Well, it means when a service, for whatever reason, does not operate, so let's say a vehicle's broken down, from end to end there'll be, say, 20 miles. If it misses half because it's broken down, they record that 10 miles has been lost to a breakdown.
Having those figures published should be really interesting, if that's possible.
I think that's something that you're in discussions with Charlie about.
Yeah,
and
we've
punctuality statistics as well.
Yeah, we've made a commitment with Charlie that we're going to start publishing some statistics to the students. So we need to sit down at some point and actually go through that. But yeah, we're happy to start publishing stats. Much like is it Virgin Trains in Chiltern that do it for their trains? We'll be doing something very similar to that. So yeah, we agree that's the way forward.
I think one thing that I would point out is if I tell you that the lost mileage statistics at Wessex is probably the lowest in the Rotala group, that gives you an indication for lost mileage. I think vehicle reliability, the investment that the company's made in the newer vehicles that it's bought, and the increased maintenance systems that we've put in place as well, are all leading us to having less breakdowns and a more reliable service in terms of vehicles being functional on the road. We've now got to try and tackle this issue that we've got with certain individual timetables, and everybody's raised the individual issues, and we're committed to doing that. So we're working hard to try and give you what you deserve and what you're asking for.
Did you have a comment? You had your hand up a while ago. Yeah, sorry, Sean.
Alright. I was going to say that I've heard a lot of people complain about bus drivers stopping to get their lunch and stuff, and that delaying the buses. I was just wondering if there's if bus drivers are given a proper lunchtime, because it seems that if they're doing that, if they're stopping the bus halfway through a route and then having lots of students being really angry at them, then maybe they're not actually being given a proper break. So I think a lot of the time, because the buses are so late, they might be forced to keep them driving, and then things like that happen. And I've also overheard conversation with bus drivers saying that they haven't been trained for routes and stuff like that. So I think the bus driver morale was quite low. So maybe if they were treated a bit nicer by other people, that wouldn't happen, and that wouldn't be such a big problem.
Okay, drivers should never be stopping on a route. There's no need. There's a requirement by law that they have to have their legal break, and these are all built into their duty boards. So they all stop for periods of time from half hour up to hour and a half on their routes. So if drivers are stopping on the route to call in the shop for whatever reason, then if you write into comments, I will deal with that, because they shouldn't be doing that. That's the first time I've heard that that's been happening, where they're stopping to buy their lunch.
We did have a tweet come in earlier saying bus drivers stopping for Greggs sometimes as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, imagine it's 25 to 2, the bus is 30 minutes late, the bus driver's break is meant to start at 1:30. How do you kind of regulate their breaks against the amount of time that they're late out of their control then? Because obviously that's what's happening, is the bus is late, they haven't had time to go to their lunch when they're supposed to go for lunch, and then as a result of that, they're going for lunch.
Yes, legally they have to have their break, so they come off and then we fill that backlog with another driver. So,
yeah, but obviously, if a bus is running late, they obviously stop there and then, because they're under the impression that is their time for a break, is it not?
No, that shouldn't happen. There's sufficient time for them to be late. They're not built in so tight that if they run 10-15 minutes late, all of a sudden they're just going to stop the bus. They have an hour to spare before they have to have a legal break. So that should never happen.
So just to clarify that for you, that each bus driver is permitted by law to drive for 5.5 hours continuously, and then they must have a 30-minute break to relax and refresh themselves. We tend not to go to that maximum. Most duties that operate in Wessex have an hour break for them to have rest and relaxation. The law then goes on to say that actually you can drive for 7 hours 45 minutes as long as you have a 45-minute break at the end of that, as long as it's not the end of the duty. So there's specific legislation in place that we rigidly adhere to, and if a driver runs over into his meal break, as long as he has his minimum break, he'll be paid for the bit that he's lost, or if he's not got enough time, then there'll be an additional driver goes to allow him to have his minimum meal break. And that's all built into the way in which Wessex functions and operates. But the point that's made, Charlie, is drivers that know they have a break, they should bring sandwiches with them or whatever. There is no way in which a driver should be stopping mid-route and going into the shop and buying sandwiches and stuff. And if you tell us about that, we'll deal with that.
So a question from Alex, who said, will our feedback be responded to? And that's being echoed a lot on Twitter at the moment, saying there's a lot of hot air being thrown around. How are we going to make sure we're not sat here in 6 months' time asking the same questions? This whole thing is pointless. Is anything going to change? How do we make sure that things are now going to change and we're going to see a difference?
Okay, I think a lot of hot air, that's disappointing. I think the fact that we're here hopefully was going to prove to you guys that we are taking this seriously and we actually want to make things change, and we want to be the first choice for travel for students in Bristol and in Bath. We've now got, I know we keep banging on about traffic data, but tracking data, but we've now got quite a lot of data that we can look at and gives us an actually fairly reflective picture of what's happening. Alongside what we've already seen, alongside what you're telling us, the complaints, we then look at all of that, and as Chris has already said, he spent a lot of time this weekend and today with Anthony at head office looking at the timetables and proposing changes. Those changes won't just be minor tweaks, they will be robust. We'll make sure, we have to prove to the Traffic Commission that we can operate those, and we'll, as Chris said, he's going to hope that the Students' Union, if you can, will provide a letter of support and hopefully can minimise the time. So that's again a commitment for us that we want to put timetables in that work. We're going to put timetables in with the right frequency. We're going to look at all the tracking data and see what buses are running when. Are they specifically late on certain sections of route? Give them more time where needed. So we are listening, we are going to change things, and we will put on Facebook, we will put on Twitter, and we'll put on our website, so if you go to wessexbuses.com, news feeds about all the stuff that we're going to change, when we're doing that with the Traffic Commissioner and what the outcomes are. So we'll be really transparent with you about what we're asking for changes on. So that's how we can prove that we are going to change things. And you've got the comments at Wessex Bus email address. And we're employing we're looking at employing 2 other people to purely manage our social media side of things. So we're really going to try and step up. We know we're not very good at tweeting and Facebook. That's something that we've made a commitment to Charlie in our separate meetings, and we're now moving forward with getting people on board that are going to help us to do that better, communicate with you better. So I hope that gives you a commitment that we are going to change things.
Just before we go to people on the floor, I just want Chris, is there a role for UE in all this?
I think there is, and we also have people that can respond. And I think one of the things we've really noticed this year is last year a lot of people gave us feedback through both sort of our Facebook and Twitter pages. This year that's completely dried up. We're getting very, very little feedback to the university. I mean, I think a lot of it's coming through to the Students' Union that we used to receive. So it's just to remind everybody, follow the UE Travel Twitter page, give us the feedback, and we can take this up directly with Wessex. If there are any particular trends and things that are happening out there, and we'll also try and make sure that we sort of put out on Twitter any updates as well, mirror what's, because we automatically, when Wessex tweet, put those tweets out. So make sure you follow our channels as well, and we are here to help you guys. We're here to sort of make sure you can get to and from the university, so use us.
Comments to one here and then 2 at the back.
Sorry, I've just come in, just kind of comment you said earlier about building an app, and you said it costs hundreds of thousands of pounds. Thought it was quite interesting, because I actually work for the Students' Union, and I built an app for the Student Union bars with no coding experience whatsoever. I'm able to send push notifications to people that are using this phone app, and it cost me about £275. So I thought it was quite an interesting point.
But that's very different from you trying to pull data off a ticket machine that's on my bus that's then going through the airwaves to my mobile provider that's then going through to...
I'm able to send notifications to people, say, for instance, hey, the bus late. This 13 is not running today, there's been a traffic accident or something like that. I'm able to send that information like that to people's phones.
We can do push notifications, that's not a problem. We can do that via the Wessex Tickets app, but my point is that we have a Tickets app that is separate to the bus tracking and information app, which isn't run by us, it's run by Travel West, and they've spent a lot of money developing it. And the point was, why don't we do that ourselves? The point is that Travel West has spent a lot of money doing it. Why would we replicate that when they've got a brilliant app? and it would cost us a lot of money to get all that raw data off the buses over the mobile network, change it all so it works on an app, and then send out push notifications. That is an expensive process.
So with that app that you've got for the Travel West, you're able to send any push notifications to let people know if buses are running late or if there's any
because it's Travel West and not ours. I don't know. We don't run that. We don't operate it. We just provide them with the information for them to put in for the timetables, and we're working with them to get the live tracking on it. It's something I can go away and ask. I don't know whether they can do that.
Working around the room.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm a Barrow Ashton student, and you'd be surprised how much of an impact the bus service has on a Barrow Ashton student. Getting involved in any sort of student union activity this side of Bristol, it's quite unfortunate really, because a bus, it puts people off from travelling an hour and 30 minutes through the city centre to Frenchay, where all the activity is. And now that, you know, there are more students coming to Barrow Ashton, St Matthias is now closed and there are more people going to Barrow Ashton, is it now time that we should turn around and say maybe the 14 should go down the M32 and carry on to Barrow Ashton a couple of times a day?
It's not a bad suggestion.
As an express route, because a lot of people would, if the journey was halved, I mean, from the city centre of Bristol to here takes about 8 minutes to get from the 12, which is brilliant now, by the way, in my opinion, because you're going up through Hotwells, which is a lot quicker. To get from Barrow Ashton to there takes about 12 minutes. You could literally get here in 20 minutes if that were the case. And a lot more people that side of Bristol would be more active this side of Bristol, where we need them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take that away and I'll have a think about that. The other thing is that we originally proposed the network with a couple of routes going up, I think, called Romney Avenue. I don't know whether you know it or not. There's a link being made at the top of Romney Avenue that gets you into the university, and we were told that that would be open for August. That didn't happen, so we had to, at the very last minute, change things to go up different routes. We're hopeful that that will be opened in early to mid 2015, and that will actually solve a lot of the timetabling issues where there's a delay coming from sort of halfway up the route straight to UE. It's not going to solve everything. We understand we've got to go away and look at everything else, but they're the kind of things we'd be looking at. Yeah, so thanks for your input.
And thanks for the positive comment on the 12 as well, by the way. Thank you.
Okay, you said you want to be more transparent. Are you going to sort of open up your finances in any way? Because I think a lot of students are going to want to know sort of how much the Wessex Star rebrand costed, when sort of we want a better service, not better looking buses.
Okay, we are, as with any company that's registered in the United Kingdom, you can go onto Companies House website and download our accounts.
Just a couple of things. My first point is pretty much been removed because you've declared that you're employing 2 more people in social media, which is great to hear. But just my first query is, when I started here at UE and sort of basically in my second year, your social media was quite good. You know, I was getting replies over Twitter to queries that I had quite quickly within a couple of hours. But as you've been ramping up the service and ramping up the kind of rebranding of now over the summer, it seems like the person who's managing your social media has disappeared. So as opposed to in January and February, you smile because there's clearly a story behind this, but in January and February I was getting good service over Twitter, getting good contact. All of a sudden she's gone. He or she has gone.
Yeah, okay, so we understood that. That was something where we had somebody in place who was very good at it. Unfortunately, they left us and we've replaced them with somebody else. And we were as I say, we recognised that. We realised actually we're not as active as we should be, partly because Charlie told us so. And we work very closely with Charlie, and the comments that you give him come back to us directly, so you can be rest assured that even if you're telling Charlie, they'll come to us. And yeah, you're right, we dropped off, we didn't do well enough. That's why we're going to ramp up what we're doing in social media and make sure we do it properly.
Second point, again, I know it's quite technical, it's just with the head over displays of the bus routes. I mean, I'm quite good fortunate as I've been in Bristol for quite a while and know what the different buses do. But for new students who are, say, going across the road and they see a bus coming towards them with a number, and then I think the problem is it just says CS.
Yeah.
What's that? Like,
yeah, we're aware of that.
Sometimes blank with no indication at all, sometimes there's a little paper square. Is that an issue that's being addressed, or is that a problem?
Yeah, that's something that Steve and I've been here for the last couple of days, and we've worked on that, and we've got the software in place now, and we know how to fix that problem, so we'll be doing that over the coming days.
Thank you.
Okay, just out of curiosity, actually, in regards to our complaints going to Charlie and whether they've gone to you, Charlie in particular, you know what's been going on Facebook, the sheer amount of comments that are directed at Wessex. Has have the guys seen those?
Yeah. When we met last Friday, we presented a sheet of screenshots and comments and copied and pasted comments of everything from that Facebook group, which I'm sure you're all members of. So you have seen those, and you took some time looking at that in the meeting.
Yeah, that's why we're here. As soon as we saw that, I suggested that we did something that was a bit more open, and between the four of us that were in the meeting and Emma, we sort of came up with doing this as an idea. So that's a direct result of you talking to Charlie.
Yeah, just because I did put them into an email and put them onto the complaints site, but I haven't had a reply, and I understand 28 days to reply to that, but I just status and mentioning how rubbish the service is, over 500 people, because, you know, that's a lot of people who aren't impressed, and I'm glad that you are here as a result of, but surely as a company you shouldn't be getting to this situation. We're not your mummy, we're not your boss, you're a company, you should have been better in the first place, really.
Yeah, I think we held our hands up and said that a couple of things haven't been as we planned them to be, and you can sit down and plan until you're blue in the face, but we didn't. The demand on the 13 has been a lot more than we ever thought it was going to be. Demand on the 14 is a lot more. We're looking at changing things, and yeah, that's why we're here.
I think one of the things that I would say is that any company that provides a service relies upon feedback from its customers. And we've heard the feedback loud and clear. We can plan lots of different things, and we can take tracking data, and we can develop a timetable, and we can develop a network of services that we feel is going to meet the needs. Capacity issue in the 14s, you know, the 12 is a problem for me, the 11A is a problem. Then we would be ripe for some criticism. But I think one thing that I would ask you to consider is that we're receiving your feedback, and we're actually doing something about it, and we're trying to respond to what you're telling us. And I think that should be held with some positivity rather than the five.
I'm happy that you are here.
Yes.
And that was why I was curious to ask whether you had seen it. It's just a bit diabolical that it's got to this in the first place.
Well, the point I'm trying to make to you, I think, is that I'm disagreeing with you in some respects, in the nicest possible way, of course. That when you plan to put a network of bus services in and a timetable in, then what you rely upon after that is for feedback from the service users. And if there's something not working, then we should respond to that, shouldn't we? And to try and put it right. And I think what we're saying is that we developed a network of services and a timetable without some of the information that Chris spoke about. We believed that we could operate to that timetable based on the information that we had. Due to a number of circumstances, we've had some issues, and you've communicated these issues to us, and we're working to realign that.
How many years have you been working with UE? Because I know for a fact that Charlie was dealing with issues last year.
Yeah.
So this has already been going on for over a year, and I understand you are here, you're trying things, but surely if it's been an issue in the previous year, everything should have already been potentially considered for this year. I mean, MarketGate itself has been around for a hell of a lot of time. Bow Ashton's been around for a lot of time. I understand that there was a closure of another campus, and that was obviously meant a shift in where students are going, but because everything's already been here substantially, you're not a brand new bus service to us. Surely the issue should have been long sorted.
Well, the dynamics earlier on, when the chap sitting next to you was speaking, the dynamics of the relationship between UE and Wessex has changed significantly this year for the first year, where last year it was a contractual relationship, this year is a commercial relationship. So what we had to do was we had to look at, in conjunction with the university, I guess a smaller network of services based on the information that we had available, to develop that and develop a set of timetables based on the information that we had available to us. And we did that. We would never put into, Stephen and his team would never put into place a network of service and a timetable that we never thought we could deliver. But I think the important thing that I'm trying to get across is that any company that puts into place a network of services or a timetable relies upon feedback from the service users to either say, this is really fantastic, you're providing a great service, or B, wait a minute, we've got a problem here, we can't get on the bus, there's a capacity issue. What's important is if we get feedback that we have issues and we do nothing, then we're letting you down. But what I'm trying to say is that you're telling us loud and clearly that there are issues on certain routes and we're responding to them.
Can I go to the back, because you've had your hand up for a long time, and then here as well.
Okay, yeah, you also mentioned capacity issues. What would your answer be, because this is feedback I've had, say I'm a student parent, I'm picking my student up from the nursery and I've got a pushchair, and then I have to get the bus, but the bus is too full for me to get my pushchair on, and then I have to wait another hour or so for another bus. What would your answer be? Because that's what I've heard several times.
Okay, if I was driving the bus, I would ask people to allow the passenger on with a pushchair. I'm a parent myself. I wouldn't like to see my wife and my daughter stranded on the side of the road. So I would expect my drivers to make room to make sure that that pushchair with a little one and a mother could get on the vehicle. There are spaces on the vehicle to allow room for a disabled passenger or a pushchair. Though they are signposted to say that these are priority for these circumstances.
I just heard it doesn't work as well as it could in terms of that. Like bus drivers haven't been asking them to get off, and that's what I've heard. I'm not a parent myself. I'm just trying to pass on what I've heard.
Okay, well, if you can get me more information, then I can investigate that as well.
I think one of the things that we have to consider as well, and drivers have to consider, is that each vehicle is licensed by the DVSA, the Department of Transport, to seat so many passengers and to carry so many passengers standing. So there's a total number of passengers that a vehicle, any vehicle, when it's registered, is licensed to carry. So the driver cannot exceed that level of passengers. And when you go on a bus, the bus is required to display what the numbers are. And you'll find that some of them say, just as an example, 50 seated, 25 standing, or 50 seated, 20 standing, and a wheelchair. And it gives you the breakdown of what that vehicle's licensed to carry. The driver's number one priority has to be the safety of everybody concerned. And if you've got a really full bus, and somebody with a wheelchair or a pram or a child wants to board the bus, then as long as the driver's not putting anybody at risk, and safety, I would agree with Stephen that we should do what we can to try and assist that person getting on the bus. But what I wouldn't expect is the driver to operate outside what is required to do legislatively.
Yeah, I understand that. But then, sorry, what was your name? Stephen? Yeah, he said that he would ask people to get off the bus, and now you're saying that they can't ask people to get off the bus because they don't want to do
You
that
can only ask. I can't physically force you to get off, but I would ask, yes.
Yeah.
Can I go here, because you've had your hand up for a long time?
Well, when I first came to Bristol last year, and I wasn't from here, I'd never been here before, and I got on a bus, I don't know what it was, and I had no clue where I was going. Like, there's names of stops and so on, but I had no idea where the bus went, what the stops' names were, and like I live in London, so I was so used to that kind of bar that kind of says the next stop that's coming up or whatever, and I think that that's something that some of your buses have, but actually since I've come back the second year, I've seen no buses with it, which I think would be really good, and it's something that I don't think you can really have an excuse for not doing, because it's not that big a deal. It doesn't really matter how many students are on the buses and so on. It's something that should be running all the time, just to let people know, oh, this is a stop that's coming up, just because they're a bit confused. Most of the students haven't really been to Bristol before. A lot of them are international students, and I think it'd be a really good idea to just have that kind of notice to say, oh, this is what's coming up, and this is the route of the bus, and so on. It'd just be so much easier. I don't see why you've not done it, fully. Yeah, you've kind of done it on a couple buses here and there, but not on every single bus service.
Okay, we trialled it on a couple of routes last year, and it worked quite well. We tried it on a couple of routes in the West Midlands, but the big difference between here and London is that everything that is done in London is funded for by Transport for London.
I'm just saying that that's what I was used to, and
Yeah.
thank God I'm English, so I kind of read it and so on, but I'm just saying that's what I'm used to, and there's no reason for it not to be done here. I'm not comparing it to London, because there's no way you can compare the service to London.
I suppose there are several reasons that it's not done here at the moment, and it is one of the things on our long list of things that we love to achieve in transport, and we work towards them every day. Mobile ticketing was one that we've managed to bring to fruition, and quite a lot of students are telling us they're happy with that. So perhaps next stop announcements is the next thing that we need to be looking at.
I was wondering how... sorry.
you. I was wondering how you're going to compensate students when you provide a call service, because if you're late and I miss a lecture, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to make it now. That means I have to come back another day and use it. So you need to compensate me for my time. I thought that, especially people who have bought that year-long ticket, right? So they don't have a choice. They can't suddenly go to first. They're stuck in for however long that ticket they've bought for. So maybe for those students, you could reimburse them the cost of maybe using the other provider. So maybe they can go and use first, seeing as you're so late, and then you can pay them back for it.
Chris?
Okay. If people want to contact me via the Wessex email, and I'll look at individual cases, and I'll reply back to them individually. Okay.
Okay, there's been someone on Twitter who has sent in a lot of tweets about this, so I'm going to ask it. Now the 11's cancelled, how are students meant to get to Temple Meads?
I suppose that again it comes from what Chris at the end was saying earlier about the change in looking at how we provide routes, where we provide them. Everything going through Temple Meads delayed buses significantly, and it was a joint decision between us and the university that perhaps it didn't need to be served. The passenger figures didn't actually display that there was a truly great need or a commercially viable need to go to Temple Meads. So although I can only apologise for that being taken off, it was taken off it wasn't taken off lightly. We didn't just do it because we felt like it. It was done because it didn't fit how we had to do the rest of the network.
Yeah, I think it would actually put quite a lot of delay into particularly the 11A service running in out of Temple Meads again, and also the way the route would need to go back along Coronation Road if we were to do that, and we lose the Spike Island link then. It's working out what is the best route for everybody to get to Bower Ashton, and there is the stop on Temple Way. I know it's a little bit of a walk, but it's not a massive walk. It's only about 4 or 5 minutes up to the Temple Way stop from Temple Meads. So apart from the days it's really actually hammering it down with rain, it shouldn't be too much of an issue, but I do appreciate on those horrible, cold, damp mornings, it's not particularly pleasant.
Do you have any final questions from the floor before Wessex end with a statement, perhaps? A last parting comment?
I'd just like to thank everybody for coming along, and I can assure you that we're working very hard to try and resolve some of the issues that have been raised. I think that today was a valuable opportunity for us to meet with service users, and I think that, Charlie, with your agreement, we should perhaps rearrange one for a couple of months' time, and then we can see where we are in a couple of months' time based on all the stuff that we've told you about. I heard somebody talking about hot air. I mean, we should be measured on what we do rather than what we say. So we would be quite happy to come back and talk to service users in a month or so's time, just to see where we are, and if there's any other issues that you want to raise with us, discuss with us, we'd be happy to listen to them too.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate that we're here because we want to make changes. There's another tweet that's just come in about lowering buses. Our drivers should be lowering buses for disabled passengers, and we will make sure that we reiterate that to drivers. So we apologise if you had problems with buses not being kneeled for you when you need to use them as a disabled passenger. But I'd just like to underline that we're here at the depot. We're really trying hard to make this work. And if you've got comments, please send them to comments at Wessex Bus, and we're going to try really hard to make sure we're better on Twitter, we're better on Facebook, we're better on the website, and we're better at responding to your emails. And we'll have a look at the phone call issue as well, because I know that our phone lines are tied up quite a lot, and we'll see what we can do about that.
Okay, thank you very much all those who've attended. Very last point.
Do you think it might be a good idea to employ a UE student to look after your social media?
The two people are both students at UE.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, thank you for those who attended. We had over 200 people viewed in on the live stream as well, which is fantastic. So make sure you feed back all your stuff to the comments at wessexbus.com email, and hopefully we'll see some changes made. Thank you very much.
Thank you.